I tried to get.
Right.
I tried.
I
was gonna run a lawnmower on water, and that was the generator I made.
Now I see Anita's not signed in today, which is unfortunate because she's inspiring my session today.
And so then Becky comes in and tells me what she's doing today. I was like, I was going to do that on the Luminaires Owners Club, so we're going to have to change the original.
Well, I'm not doing the whole thing, okay? Because I had a series that I wanted to do, and it's not just Luminaires. You can anybody with Design Center.
Yes.
This isn't specific to a Luminaire. I also work on the Stellaires. It's just you would bring them in differently than I would on the Luminaires, and some of your buttons would be different.
Mm-hmm.
But what inspires this is I have a lot of people who come to me, Eddie, can you go down? And they say, oh, I have this really cool quilt and these really cool quilt patterns, and hey, I don't feel like doing that applique by hand because I have an embroidery machine. So Anita, sorry Anita, calling you out, this is probably 2 years ago she gave me this. I'm like, when you're ready, when you're ready. She'll be proud I found it, because at first I was like, I still have that? Okay, let me look. All right, I did find it. She's doing an anniversary quilt that has these things like borders all around it. It's going to be gorgeous. And I said to myself, you can do that on the Luminaire.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, what a great thing to show you. You could also do it on the Dream Machines and the Stellaire as well. Today we're going to use, and I said, not only can I do it on the Luminaire and the Dream Machine, but I can show you what the heck this thing is for. I don't know how many of you have actually used this scanner before. For the longest time, it's all I used because I didn't know I could scan my hoops.
Yep.
Now I know I can scan my hoops, so I don't use this as much anymore. But this is a perfect example of when it comes in handy. I know I'm like at 15 minutes. I gotta go.
No, you're at half past. I was supposed to tell you when we're at the 30th hour.
Yeah. Now what I do
30.
when I look at this, and this is true of anything I digitized. Okay, but I'm not going into a software program and digitizing today. We're going to do it on this guy. As I look to see, these really aren't all different. They're made up of similar components. If you look, you'll see the stem is repeated and repeated. You'll see all the leaves. They're just repeats.
Mm-hmm.
The flower is a repeat. The tulip is a repeat.
So it's just the stem that's different.
So, and not always.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying.
There's still, on here I see three types of stems. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
So when I set about to do something, whether it's in software or on my machine, I'm thinking components. I am not thinking the whole design. You'll see YouTube videos where they go, oh yeah, we're scanning the whole design and we'll show you how to make it. And I'm here to say to you, why? Especially when we start Prairie. Because Prairie is all about components that are put together to make flowers.
Yes.
There's a limited number of components, and it's how you use them. And see, I'm hoping your wheels are starting to spin on how we can do that ourselves. So for an example, I took this little guy right here. And I don't want to scan in him, although I could, and then I could pull it apart. I find it easier to find the components. And that's what this represents. I basically put this on a light box and then traced, and not very well, but I traced my components.
That's like Brent level of tracing there on
yeah,
that
but
flower.
Why do you see? It doesn't matter. That's the cool thing. So I've traced the components, and I'm going to store them as components. Now, y'all remember way back when we did the Christmas stocking cuff? I talked to you then about saving components so you can reuse them. Like the cuff could become a mug rug, a cuff could become a this, a cuff could be that. Yeah, thank you, Ann. So, right?
Mm-hmm.
That theory still holds on this. So, we're going to scan in our components, and we're going to digitize components, which later, and we won't get through this all today. Oops, sorry, I hit you.
That's
The
You
sorry
feel bad
was
when
bigger than the hit. So
when you don't mean to do it, you're sorry. When you don't mean to do it, you're sorry. But
there's an equalizer slap. When we go to the embroidery mode, when we build it, we'll be building it in embroidery mode with components.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Especially if you've scanned in the block that you're putting this vine around,
Oh,
right? You've
yeah.
got the quilt all made. That's what I told Anita, make your quilt first. We'll put the applique on after.
Yep.
You scan it in, you build your components, bada bing, bada boom.
And we're gonna scan this in, but I will say
We won't get the whole thing built today. I expect I'll be touching on this again next week.
I will say though, one of the things to keep in mind, if you can ever get a JPEG version of what you want.
Oh, no, don't say it yet, because there's a turbo tip coming.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I don't have any advice to offer because Becky has told me no.
I told you not to say anything.
I didn't say anything. I said I have.
You know, I don't know what I'm going to do with you, Brent. Okay, these are little magnets. You basically don't want to cover this black strip up here because it needs it for registration. And if you're using the Stellaire, you're putting this on that special hoop.
Yeah, that's gonna.
It's just a different way of getting it in the machine. But don't give away the secret.
That's just the calibration for the light balance. So you can't. If you do cover it, it's not the end of the world. But you might not get a good quality scan.
The other thing I wanted to point out is you want your background paper to be as clean as possible because it will try to do any little yucky yucks it sees.
If you see that, I don't know if you can see this on the camera. There's a little bit of
a little bit. Well, let's make it darker because I'm
no,
going to
I'm
show you
just
how to get rid of it.
Well, I'm just going to say.
Oh, see, like those mucky lines.
But I just want people to know that light right there, as light as that is, that'll probably show up in the scan. And you made it darker.
Well, there's a light. They can't see it.
I know, but I'm just saying that was what I was getting at.
So you don't want crap like this unnecessarily on there. But we're going to show you how to get rid of it if you have it.
Okay. You know, talk about Amber. You know, if she was actually doing this, that might actually be crap.
Oh, it took me a minute. Look at me using my hand, people. Oh no.
Okay.
Go back. Okay. Becky just did what she shouldn't have done.
Okay. That was a great learning experience. I don't know if anybody caught that.
Did y'all hear it go?
I'm going to show you what she did, just to replay.
The thing I tell you all not to do, I just did it.
She got very excited because she was using her hand, and she put this in. And you want to hold this, but she didn't.
I didn't because the finger still hurts a little.
Now listen carefully.
Yeah, that's it. No.
If that ever happens,
you take it.
Stop immediately.
Yes, don't keep going, Anita.
Restart the machine.
I'm saying and calling Anita out because she did that.
Yeah, if you ever do that,
going.
It's not the end of the world. Just
it
stop, restart the machine, and it'll put everything. Because can you go over
Bye,
this,
Sue.
Eddie? Go to this one here. You see how? You see how it's asking us everything's off there because what this is going to do, it's going to move everything to recalibrate so it knows where it wants to be. That happens whenever you start an embroidery machine.
Yeah. So if you do what I did,
yep. And now
don't keep going and don't try to fix it yourself. That doesn't work either. Just simply restart your machine.
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to go into my design center. We're in my design center. So yeah, even your baby locks have this.
Yeah, any embroidery machine is going to recalibrate on startup. So we're here on the home screen, and we're going to go to my design center.
Okay. Cool beans. Now here's the fun part. We are going to scan this. Now this isn't any different than scanning on the scanning cut, or scanning on a photocopy, or scanning on a multifunctional printer. So Brent, you want to pick the old scanning button, which is up to your top. It's that leaf-looking thing. Now. Here's why we get in trouble. We call it the scanning button, but it's not really a scanning button only. It's an input button.
Yes, it's an image capture.
We have to think, this is where his little blue is going to come in.
Now, on a Dream Machine, it's going to be a little bit different. That's one of the buttons that is the last little bit different.
Okay.
But it's there somewhere, and I can't remember off the top of my head. But if you're watching this have a Dream Machine, it's there. Just find it.
Okay. In today's demonstration, what we want to choose is line design, because we've got lines on the screen, and we want to turn them into something. Now, here's the trick of my little turbo tip, which I think is where you were headed. Is this where you were headed?
Yes.
Yes. If you have a JPEG that say you downloaded from the internet, or you took a picture with your phone, or
basically
if you have
one of the things too, if you have a PDF pattern,
Yep.
There are free tools that will convert a PDF to a JPEG.
Right.
And a lot of people are downloading, you download your patterns and print it out in a PDF format.
Yep.
Well, if your pattern is in a PDF format, get one of those JPEG converters and just convert the page that has your image on it.
iScan does that. I use iScan a lot for that. Or you can scan it, but the trick, and I never knew this was my turbo tip, and you obviously knew it, is if you have a JPEG that's already on your computer or somewhere else, you can actually put that JPEG on a USB stick and download it using these USB commands without even doing the scan.
And if you have the option,
which I thought was wild.
You will get a cleaner scan that way too.
You will get a cleaner scan. Yes. The other turbo tip I had for you guys, and this isn't a new one, but it's a reminder, that you can use an old-fashioned wired mouse.
Old-fashioned.
It has to be an old-fashioned one, not a cheesy one.
Whatever happened to trackballs? I always liked trackballs.
A cheesy wired mouse. Instead of using your finger or the stylus on the system, you can now use, see that? I find that this is so much easier.
Yes, on the Luminaire, you're going to find that probably, because of the active matrix screen on the Luminaire, it's different than a Dream Machine. So it's harder to do fine point work on a Luminaire than a Dream Machine because of the screen technology. I would recommend definitely a mouse for a Luminaire.
I really have enjoyed the mouse. And the other thing I've worked with, I'll throw this out.
$2 on Amazon?
Yeah, very, very inexpensive. Walmart.
Yeah, you probably have one in a box somewhere of wires that
you'll
never use again.
These are fancy. I don't know if we can go down, Ed. This is a fancy stylus that if you didn't use a mouse, this is a stylus I really like, a Miko stylus. And you can see it comes with much smaller heads. Which I like better than the stylus that comes with the machine. But by far my favorite is to use the mouse when I'm doing this kind of work. Maybe it's because I'm a computer person, so it's more natural.
Yeah, but that is one of the.
That out there.
That's probably the only thing about the Luminaire where I think the Dream Machine is better is the screen. When you're in Design Center, if you're doing a lot of Design Center, the screen in the Dream Machine is a lot easier. The touch screen is a lot better for fine work. But the mouse or the stylus really fixes that.
Well, let's go ahead and scan this in before we totally run out of time. So we at least can show you that part.
So I'm just going to
and then part 2, we'll actually turn it into something next week. How's that sound?
And like I said, this was what I was going to do at the first Luminaire's Owners Club, but apparently...
Well, the other thing I wanted to demonstrate on this is you notice that there's some overlapping on these components, too.
Yes.
So I want to show how you deal with the overlaps. I want to take it down the road, and eventually I'd like to go all the way to scan and cut.
We can do that.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is not how I typically do my digitizing, just because I have other tools available to me. But if you don't, and you just, when you look at this, there aren't that many shapes. There just aren't. Look at it.
And honestly, this is where I think the Design Center really shines. This is one of those things that the Design Center does really well. Mm-hmm. That you wouldn't need software for.
No.
And I really, for machine applique type stuff,
simple stuff
like this. I think really, the Design Center is awesome.
And even if you wanted to turn this into embroider fills.
Yes.
And this happens to be an applique quilt, so we're going to applique it. But you can see how you could easily change that to embroidery as well.
You could do the
or a combination thereof.
Yeah, you could do like the leaves as embroidery and do the stems as an applique type thing.
Yep, or vice versa.
So anyway,
okay. So now where Brent is we're going to use those arrows to crop out what we don't really need.
And just showing you that those extra marks we had over here really kind of are showing up.
Yeah, so we can crop them out though.
Yeah,
the other thing I wanted to point out while he's doing this is down at the bottom, the Grayscale Detection. That allows you, the higher that is, the more junk it's going to find. So that's why I trace it with a black Sharpie, so I can use a lower grayscale so I can get rid of all the other specks that might be on the paper. But you can absolutely change that, and it'll pick up more or less things based on the grayscale. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is way down at the bottom where you see the straight stitch and the zigzag stitch. When it first tries to bring this in, it's already deciding what I'm going to put around it. Now, Brent, because I'm building components, I want you to just choose one component.
Well, I'm going to choose this guy then, because that'd be the easiest one to do.
Okay.
And I like the fact that it has that little wonky pedal right there.
Yeah.
It just makes it so endearing.
Yep, well, yeah, okay. And so right away you get to choose straight stitch or zigzag stitch. No, I want you to choose straight stitch. But I want you to be aware that it's actually asking that already, because it's going to put a boundary around it right away. Step one, it's gonna outline that.
And as a hint, what I will tell you is sometimes I won't even. I'm gonna go. Do we mind scanning this again? Can we go back and stuff?
You can, because we're not gonna get it through today anyway, because I'm being watchful of the time for change.
Yeah. So what we're going to
we're
go back
almost
up here.
ready to sign out, people.
So what?
You're on the edge of your seats.
So what you've got here, and the reason now you can do this. This is why it's defaulting. This is why it's defaulting to a zigzag, to an outline step, because we told it we were doing a line
design.
If we said we were doing an illustration design, it would want to do fill stitch.
Yep.
Or you could just do an image scan, which is going to bring it in and use it.
An image scan is just
like a background scan. However, you can use an image scan and later convert it to lines if you want to.
Yes. Some people do that for photos, and I just don't know that it comes out that great. But
it didn't need to rescan because it knew what we already had in there.
Okay, so let's just pick one component so we can at least show the beginning of this.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I'm doing it component at a time, guys, is I don't want one thing with all that stuff on there. I literally will do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different scans to bring these components in and build them so they're in my design center for me to use. Okay.
Now, if I wanted to try a different grayscale, see how I can change my grayscale and hit retry? Depending on your, if this wasn't such a clean image, you would pick more stuff up when you do it.
But I recommend using a black Sharpie for your tracing when you're doing this stuff. You get a much cleaner rendition.
Let me see if I can. I just want to demonstrate this if I can. So that zoom in. Did you see how those lines are a little bit narrower on that end of the spectrum? And if I come all the way up here, it's going to be a little bit more. It's going to look a little harder.
Okay, let's scan.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we already scanned.
What's that?
Okay. All right.
Return.
Are we done? If we return, we're going to go back. We want to set it.
Oh, I thought you hit set. Sorry. I thought I saw you hit set.
And we're just doing a regular running stitch, right?
We are for now, yes.
And there you go.
Sorry. Okay, so now, at this point, that background is in my way. So I want to get rid of the background. It's noise at this point. I only care about the component I scanned. So up at the top, we can just, click that button to the left.
That one's going to
and
fade
it basically fades it till it turns off.
Or if you miss it, you're like, where did my background go? Bring it back.
You can bring it back. But I don't like it on at this point.
Yeah,
you don't need
it anymore. Yep.
I don't need it anymore. All I need is my little flower. Now, the first thing I want to test, because I'm telling you I'm going to make this as an applique, is I want to make sure my shape is a closed shape. Because if it's not a closed shape, it's not an applique. So, I take my paint can and fill.
That guy right there is your fill bucket.
Fill my little flower to make sure. Now, see how it all stayed within the flower? That assures me that's a closed shape. If it had spilled out here, there, and everywhere, then I have a problem. Then I have to go in and say, where is the problem? But because I used a black Sharpie, and it is a closed shape, it comes in as a closed shape. So that's beautiful. So we know that's not an issue, right?
And you have undo down here on the bottom if you ever screw something up.
We do have undo.
Do you want me to leave it filled?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't need it. I don't need it filled. That's fine. So now so I tested to make sure it's a closed shape.
Yeah.
And it is. So that's good. Now, remember I told you at this point that, hit next for me, Brent. I told you it already had.
Yeah, it already did all that.
It already had goodies assigned to it. And you see how it's got 0.08 as its stitch pitch, which is really like a stitch length.
Almost like a length, yeah.
Okay, so this is really like my placement stitch.
Yep.
Already, I've got a placement stitch. But I don't want 0.08 for a placement stitch. That's kind of tiny, isn't it?
I don't know off the top of my head. I usually have to experiment with it.
I usually have to go to millimeters and centimeters in my world.
Do you want me to put it back to millimeters?
No, not yet. Just turn it up. We just want to see people that they can see. That's how you can turn it up. Okay, that's turned up more than enough. That's good. Okay, say okay.
That's a 1/10 of an inch.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we actually, while you're in there, you can also run the stitch simulator. Another little tip for you people in Design Center, if you have a Luminaire, there's a stitch simulator. Remember we showed it over in Embroidery Land before.
Yep.
You have it over at the Design Center too. So if you choose the stitch simulator, which is up in the upper right-hand corner, over right there.
There's a hoop view.
No, and see the
Well, yeah, I know,
see
but
the
it's
little guy right
technically
there?
called hoop view.
Well, I don't call it hoop view.
Okay.
There we go. See how it went around once?
Yay!
So I know, yeah. Guess what? I just scanned and it automatically had the line property associated with it.
Yep.
So I'm going to close out of here. And I am going to save it to memory. And this is why. And on my machine or a USB stick, depending on what you guys want to do. Why I'm saving it to memory is I'm going to reuse this component again and again and again. Because guess what? Placement stitch. Then I'm probably going to use it as a tack down switch, although I prefer a different tack down because I'm thinking satin stitch overlay on this one.
Yeah.
So I like the little thing better.
Okay.
Because I can go around once with that instead of twice. And then I'm going to want to do a satin stitch.
Okay.
Right? All those things. So if I save this as a component in memory right now,
which we just did,
I can call it up and modify it and resave it. Because every time I save it to memory, it gives it a whole new little number.
Yep.
Which you don't know until you go into memory to see what it is.
And then you got
to write it down.
You got like a screen full of.
Right. Now if I hit set right now, which we can, this is when it actually converts it to an embroidery design. Now if I had forgotten to save it to memory first, I am gonzo. I have to start over again. Not that it's the end of the world. You saw how fast it was to get that component. But if I save it to memory first, before I hit that set button, now when I go into embroidery, what do I got? A placement stitch. Right?
Yep.
Pretty cool, huh? I know you're not that excited, but that's okay.
Yeah, no. A placement stitch. You see, now how I do my tack down stitch? I just do, I do a copy.
But
I know, but you like to do it differently.
No, I actually would do that in this case.
Yeah.
Except I want that little
so we'll have to go back and fix that.
Well, we're not done building anyway.
Okay, I know.
That's how fast you can get an applique, though.
That's a placement stitch. Bam, done.
Yeah, it's done. Now, obviously, because I'm building this. Am I building that? Yes, I'm building this.
Yeah.
This would be the thing I'd want last. So I go in, and this is where we'll have to stop for the day, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to build these components, save them as components, and then build them.
I see.
Yeah. So we have to stop for today because we're out of time.
Yes, but you saw how much fun that was.
Did anybody learn anything? Did anybody even care? I love this stuff.
Yeah. And like I said, this is all doable on the Dream Machine, Stellaire, any brother or baby lock machine that has a design center in it.
Anytime you see an applique that you like, don't be afraid to take it apart.
Yeah.
Take it apart to build it on your
machine.
If
you're working,
we're going to keep building this.
And if you're working
see it all the way to the end.
And if you're working in software, all I'm going to say is the logic that we're following to build this
is the same.
The logic will be the same for software.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this and you don't have a brother, the software side of it, just pay attention to the steps because the logic of the build will translates over to software as well.
Exactly. When I'm building, Eddie, can you go down here for a second? If I'm building this in my software, I'm still taking it out and building the components.
And you're going to do it in kind of the same order.
And I'm saving the components, one, as an SVG file, because y'all know I love to cut my appliques out on electronic cutting machines. And two, I'm then just using them to build the design that I'm going to create for my sewing machine.
Yeah.
Or my embroidery machine. So the concepts hold the same.
Yes.
And it's amazing what you can do on these without even going to your software.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, This is the stuff that I think the Design Center really shines on these. If you're trying to digitize a photograph, the Design Center might be able to do it, but I wouldn't do that. Wouldn't be the right tool for it.
Yeah.
This type of stuff here is where, like I said, the Design Center really shines for this sort of thing.
And if you already have your JPEG ready to go, you don't even have to scan it in. Just pull it off your USB stick and you're ready to go.
So when thinking JPEG, line art or clip art off of
there's so much out there. Free coloring book, artwork is everywhere out there.
Yeah, and you can, and using this process, you can make applique designs out of it.
Yep, or any of your patents.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's it for today.
Oh, wow, look at my hair today.
Dennis the Menace.
I know, I need a haircut, but Sarah was like...
Menace. Well, Brent, you going to take us out? No, he's just going to keep looking at himself.
Like I said, I can't do video calls because I stare at myself in the corner the whole time. Anyway,
I can't go by a window without looking at my reflection.
Oh my God.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Shenanigans with Brent and Becky. Join us again next week for this more excitement.
We're going to continue.
Yes.
We're going to continue.
And, check out the website, like, share, subscribe, and all that. And remember, sew on and be excellent to each other.
Toodles!